Welcome back, everybody, to the Investors Roundtable. I'm your host, Robert Kraft. You can follow me on Twitter at Bobby K. Kraft, BOBBYKKRAFT. I'm sorry we haven't brought you an episode in a while. Look, it's been an interesting, weird summer where like trying to find topics. It's been kind of lowly, but we got an episode for you today. If you're following me or FinTwit community or the MicroCap FinTwit community, you would probably know that this new dark stock rule, something that that OTC and the SEC has kind of alluded to over the years, it's happening. And so I wanted to have a roundtable to really talk about it and what this means for the investing community, for OTC markets, for companies that are listed as quote unquote dark companies. So with that, joining me to discuss all of this, we got Dan Schum from No Name Stocks. We got Maj Soueidan from GeoInvesting.com. We have Dave Waters from Alluvial Capital. We got Thomas Braziel from 507 Capital and Italy. Not representing Italy, he's just in Italy. And then Marcus Frampton as well, the Alaska Permanent Fund, as well as the Batman of microcaps as well. So everybody, thank you for joining me today on this short notice and just getting after it today. So thank you. All right. All right. Well, I think we should probably give everybody a little bit of perspective, right? And kind of give a short background as to what exactly is going on. So since Maj he kind of inspired me to want to do a panel on this today with his tweet, basically saying like, what the hell are we supposed to do? Maj, you want to give us kind of the brief background on what the heck is going on?
Well, I guess I don't know what's going on totally, obviously, because I'm a little bit in the dark what's going on. But I think I'm going to defer to Dan in a second because he follows this thing a lot more. But from what I understand here is that really the only thing that's going to change here is the way quotations are kind of represented to retail investors. And with this rule, what is it? I guess 15, C2-11, I guess.
15C211, yeah.
211. You're going to have these stocks. You can still buy them, as but you won't be able to, if they don't comply with some of these information requests. You're not going to be able to see them as a retail investor. And if you don't, and I think the drop dead date is September 28th. And if you don't comply with these the information requirements, you're either going to trade this expert market, which we really don't know what's going on there yet, and that or possibly the gray market, which is even less disclosures. And I guess. And maybe Dan, you correct me if I'm wrong, the expert in the gray market will kind of differ in how quotes are kind of represented by the brokers and dealers, market makers, I guess.
Well, it's unclear. So right now there's like 7,000 stocks that are going to be affected by this. And it's like a couple of years ago, the SEC put out this rule. I don't know, like they were thinking about this rule change, which would do what you're saying, Maj, which would prevent brokerages from quoting electronically any stocks that are not current, and they consider current. I think it was within the last 6 months you have to have filed financials, something like that. I don't think it was quarterly, but maybe it was. But and so right now on OTC markets, there's these different tiers, and there's about 7,000 stocks that are going to be affected by this. And once the rule goes into effect, brokerages are not allowed to quote these anymore. The OTC markets has put in a kind of a proposal to the SEC, which the SEC has not responded to yet, to give them an exemption to put all these stocks onto their expert market. And then they could quote them there. And expert market theoretically would be available for, I don't know, some kind of qualified investors or something. I don't know if it's accredited or what, but that's what OTC markets is trying to do. But the SEC has not responded and said, yes, we're going to do that or allow that or not. So right now we're in this period where the SEC has said brokerages, you can't quote these things, and brokerages are figuring out what they do on their own. And unfortunately for us, what I've seen from most of the ones I know that would allow trading in these stocks is they're just kind of backing away into the corner and saying like, well, we're out. And so Schwab, TD Ameritrade, E-Trade, they've all just, they've been putting out letters to their their account holders recently saying like, well, after August, you're not going to be able to buy these anymore. You can sell, if you can find a buyer, but you're not going to be able to buy. And so
we're really find a buyer if you can't buy.
I was watching this OTC video, I guess, where they the markets where they kind of explain what's going on here, and they said like, yeah, well, no, nothing's going to really change that. I mean, well, of course you can't see the quotes, but what they're not really playing in this whole thing is that the brokers aren't going to quote these anymore.
Yeah.
They trade them at all. But even
Yeah.
if you trade them, without seeing their quotes, the brokers aren't going to let you buy them at all. So
Yeah.
I think it's pretty interesting in there. And I think also part of the new rule too, guys, is that previously you had a company would have to file with file with FINRA, continue its compliance to be listed on with the quotes on the OTC. And I believe now OTC has some kind of also filing requirements they may require too, or are allowed to have some latitude there to figure out if a company can be quoted also. I'm not quite sure everything about that, but I think that's part of it too.
Yeah, I mean, I want to actually learn more about this expert market. That's kind of interesting. I don't remember. I haven't seen anything about that yet. I mean, Marcus, Dave, Tom, have you guys heard anything about this as well? About what this kind of looks like, or maybe some color on the proposal?
Yeah, I'll make a couple comments. I'll hand it to Dave. And by way of background, I mean, I'm kind of like in the same position of retail investors because my participation in this market's in my retail account. Whereas Dave is running a small fund, so he may have different trading relationships than I would have. I'm probably more in Dan's situation where we're like frustrated with emails we're getting from Schwab, and you sit on the phone, on hold for half an hour trying to talk about it with someone. But my understanding is consistent with what Maj and others said was, late last year the SEC came out with a ruling that prohibited showing quotes to investors on dark stocks unless there's different exemptions and reliefs. And in their original proposal, one thing that the SEC put out as something they're open to is an expert market where the only people seeing quotes would be accredited investors. So they were open to it. Then OTC Markets proposed one and it was open for comment. And all the comments that have come in the last, I guess, 6 to 9 months have been positive. There hasn't been a single comment letter against the expert market. But we have had a change in administration, different people at the SEC. So I can imagine behind the scenes, there's a transition there, but I haven't seen any evidence that anyone's against the expert market. So I'm an optimist and I'm hoping it'll get, enacted, but it just hasn't happened yet. And we're getting dangerously close to this enforcement date of September 28th, where the lights go dark for people like me and Schwab accounts on being able to trade these names. So we're getting these emails. And so I'm assuming the expert market will get approved. But for the SEC to approve it, then brokers need to decide they want to participate in it. And I haven't seen a lot of evidence that E-Trade, Fidelity, Schwab will participate in it. In their defense, nothing's been approved, so they have like nothing to really evaluate. And it's possible, I think you could see like, I'm just throwing out names. I don't have any idea what any of these companies' policies are. I could see like an Interactive Brokers having, like a higher tier professional level trading where maybe you need to be generating certain account commissions or what have you. But if you have a direct trading relationship with a prime broker and you can establish that you're an accredited investor to them, I think you'll be able to access these markets. I'm just really unclear whether you will in a normal retail account. So I think there's a lot of uncertainty, but I'm optimistic that something will come together, and then the private sector, some broker dealer will make some platform available to someone, but it may not be, when I started trading these stocks, I had like a $10,000 account. I just read a Ben Graham book. That investor may be frozen out of this market for good. So I'll hand it to you, Dave. You probably are following this a little closer than I am.
I mean, good comments, Marcus. You're exactly right that a lot of this is still a little bit up in the air. We don't know exactly how this is going to look. I'm also operating under the assumption that the expert market will be approved, but we don't know exactly when. We don't know what it'll look like. And very importantly, as you said, we don't know which brokers, if any, will want to participate in this market and make it available to their clients. I honestly think that once this market develops, this expert market, that investors, especially retail investors who want to participate in dark stocks, in these non-reporting companies, will probably have to end up as some sort of specialty broker, a more full service provider than your Schwab and your E-Trade. And the days of trading these like normal stocks, paying almost no commission and having visibility for the bid and the ask, might be just a memory. It might be a sort of thing where you're now paying $99 a trade, and you're calling your broker and saying, hey, where's the market in XYZ stock? Because you might not be able to see the quotes, because we're still finding out if brokers can even provide quotes of any kind to retail investors, or how they get around that. But I am optimistic, like you said, that these will trade in some venue. They will still price. There will still be some liquidity out there for people who really want to access it, but it won't be cheap, and it won't necessarily be easy. But then again, that might be the opportunity that arises in some of these names.
You know, I got Tom. Sorry, man.
No, I got nothing for sure. That's it. I agree. Opportunity and chaos. Maj, what you got?
I was wondering, actually, I was thinking about this a few days ago. This is ironic about what the SEC is trying to do here. The SEC is trying to basically protect investors from fraud, right? And assuming that, okay, if you file financials, the companies that file financials are the quality companies, are not fraudulent. And I think you guys are, see that's not, you have a lot. Basically, now you're telling, okay, an investor, just because they file financials, it's a legit company. And the SEC is looking at this in the whole wrong way. They're not really attacking fraud the right way, in my opinion, or pump and dump kind of schemes. These dark stocks, I think, all in all, aren't really this where all the pump and dumps are kind of like occurring. These pump and dump artists, they need liquidity. They don't want these dark stocks. I mean, to be a place they play. So I think it's just really interesting where the focus has been, and the compass of the SEC and the regulators in general are wrong here and placed in the wrong direction. Now on the positive side, so I don't think it's necessarily horrible, right, to have companies want to post their financials, right? I mean, it does offer more discovery for us, which is interesting. And I don't think that having them post it will ruin our inefficiency of the market, because people are going to play in this market or not play in this market. And that's not really changing much in terms of your desire. But I'm curious, though, if it will actually help us start identifying more of these tier one dark companies, because my experience, I mean, these dark companies there's a lot of high quality companies in this dark pool. And a lot of them just don't want to follow the OTC. They just want to file. They don't want anything to do with it. Now, if they're forced to, it might be interesting. We might find some interesting quality companies and have a place to go to see them. If this export market's going to evolve, that's going to be where all these companies didn't want to file, that were probably a lot of more quality companies, will be able to go find them in one spot, because the OTC doesn't really give you a true kind of quality kind of separation amongst companies. If you pay the fee, if you file the filings, and you don't have a skull and crossbone, you're investable, I guess. And you can start a company, have your wonderful filings, you have a patent and a license, you look like a real company, and now you're a real company, right? And that's where the pump and dumps kind of evolve, right, over time, because you're looking legit.
I feel like the pump and dumps come out of the shell. So like my experience is like you have these weird sort of like listed, not listed. There's like a Q-SIP, and they like latch onto it, and there's some weird transaction they do. They sort of take control of it, and all of a sudden they've got some business opportunity going on inside.
Right.
I mean, so it's not. There are definitely a lot of quality companies, but I mean, the chaos will be the opportunity for sure.
Yeah,
I don't know who the winners and losers are in terms of like the market participants, like OTC markets, IB. I mean, these are people that have built their business off OTC securities.
right.
I don't know if these guys winners or losers in this whole shenanigans.
Yeah, I don't know. It's going to be interesting, though.
Hey, I got a question for you guys. I mean, I'm assuming some of you talk with some of these management teams of some of these companies that you own. I mean, what's been their feedback? I mean, when is the outrage go from the brokers, like, I can't buy these things, OTC, why would you do this, SEC, what the hell, to like, all right, I own you companies, like, can you go do this now? You have to do this. We want to make sure. Like, have you guys talked to some of these companies, and what's been some of their feedback? And if no, then
I
it'll be a very
have a
quiet.
guess. I haven't spoken to anybody. I want to hear what all the other guys say, because I guess that this is the kind of thing that they deal with it when it becomes a problem. I don't think any of them even thought about it. But anyway, what is Dave or Marcus or somebody? What has y'all or Dan? What y'all think of experience?
I've talked to a few of these companies. It's pretty much what you would expect. For some companies, this is the greatest thing. It's beyond their wildest dreams.
I know.
They never liked having shareholders in the first place, besides management, and they have no plans to comply. And someday they'll buy back their shares from you cheap if they can. Other ones that have a history of treating shareholders pretty well, the kind of company where you just own the shares and they'll put you on their mailing list or something, and they treat you like a partner. They're working on it. They were kind of taken by surprise. A lot of them weren't even aware of this until very recently, when they got contacted by a shareholder or OTC Markets or someone. And so they're going through the process. They're working with their counsel to figure out how to do all this disclosure. And there's honestly a lot of opportunity, because a few of these companies I know are working on this, are on those lists from Schwab and Ameritrade and no trading, but they'll get things squared away and they will be tradable. But I think there's still a lot of companies out there who don't know this is coming, and they won't know until they get calls from angry shareholders saying, like, why can't I trade? And then we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
I heard back from one this morning, and the guy, it's like news to him, and he says, "Oh, thanks for those links to the SEC press release. Like, can we have a phone call and you can explain this to me?" So now I'm like, gonna have a call with this chairman of the board of this tiny company, and like,
just say, Dan, I'm $1,000 an hour. I'm happy to have a phone call. I'm an expert on these.
No, I'll get paid in
describe
stock.
to me your business.
I'll get paid in stock. I can't trade. You know, how about that?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't think about that silver lining. I mean, Dave, there's got to be management teams out there that are just gonna like revel in this. You know, the ones that's just so cheap. The corporate governance is just horrific, and they would just know nothing better than to squeeze you out. So
There's one responded to me the other day and just kind of said, "Yeah, we deregistered from the SEC, like we consider ourselves private, and we're going to keep going like that." And
how can they even legally say that? I consider myself private. I've heard that from companies, and I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? Like,
it's because of the SEC. It's the SEC.
Yeah, but
the SEC allows them to deregister.
I know, but they're not. But we need a securities lawyer on this one as well. I've heard that from companies. Dave, I'm sure, Marcus, you guys have heard from companies. Maj, I don't know. Somebody's heard that. There's no way. That's not accurate. They're still public. I mean, they still have. Anyway, there's a pet peeve when I hear that out of a manager's mouth. I want to smack them around.
I've had companies tell me, "You're not a shareholder." It's like, well, where are these dividend checks coming from? And yeah, you get nowhere. I need to get more lawyers involved too.
My experience so far with talking to these companies that I've come across has been pretty positive. You know, if you find a company that's, I think that's kind of putting press releases out there already, and they kind of want to be out there but don't want to be out there. You know, I found that those companies are actually pretty receptive to this. I'm curious if there's a lot, if the company really believes that their stocks, you know, should be worth a lot more than it is. You know, if they're looking at the public market as an eventual exit strategy, because you see a lot of these OTC stocks, they get taken over time. You know, I'm wondering if they're gonna, you know, say, hey, we better do this because, you know, we want to create value for ourselves too, not just our shareholders. We want an exit strategy if they can't go private, for example. I mean, I guess there is always opportunity going private and then selling yourself, you know, then at that point. But I've talked about, you know, a handful of these, maybe 7 or 8 of these companies, and they seem to be, you know, on the track and wanting to do it for the most part. You know, there are a few that don't want to do it, of course. They're the ones that you can tell they just don't want to be a public company at all.
Yeah. Well, Dan mentioned that there's like 7,000 stocks. So the crazy thing is that the universe of names is bigger than exchange traded stocks in the United States. It's like, it's not a small number. And I was just curious what you guys are doing in terms of like selling existing positions versus buying. Like it strikes me that there's a category of the 7,000 that are working behind the scenes to get current. And in some cases, like Aztec Land and Cattle posted something on their website this week saying their stock had been down like 20+%. So I think they kind of reacted to that like, oh, people are maybe selling on this. And Party Resources put on their website they're going to comply. So some it's like public, but I think most that are working on it, it's like they haven't announced it, they're just working on it. And so like there could be some interesting things there where something was dark and now the world sees like oh, look at what this company's earning. So I'm not selling those obviously, but if you have a company that says we're not going to comply, which I think some folks have said they have heard that, are you like selling those stocks right now?
Hey, Marcus, real quick, are you a shareholder in either of those?
I am a shareholder in Party, but not Aztec Land.
Okay, all right.
Mike, I think that's a great point, Marcus. But I actually think that what this could do for us is a short window of time here where we could go off on a lot of interesting opportunities here, where if their stocks are pulling back here, where the market has no idea what's going on, to really get some, stocks are already undervalued maybe because they're dark, to get even better pricing on them now. And then you have the catalyst where, hey, we're current. You're able to really cherry pick some of these great stocks, maybe at great valuations. And that's what I'm looking. I'm taking the next several weeks here to really one by one go through these stocks and find out, like, for example, where some companies like talking about it in their filing somewhere, if they have if a small filing anywhere, or a press release, but they want to get current or something. Kind of maybe that's not really out there yet per se. Maybe call on them to see what their attitudes are. And if we find that, enough of these companies where they look really good and we know they're going to file and they're going down, we just gobble those
right.
Shit.
Yeah, like if you take Aztec, for example, the stock didn't go up when they said that they were going to be current. And that's about as positive a message. That's as positive as an OTC stock saying, oh, we're going to uplist to the NASDAQ or something, which generally has and I'm not like pounding the table for Aztec Land. I'm just saying there are examples of people who said, or companies have said they'll comply and the stocks don't move. And then there are ones that I know that aren't going to comply, and some of them are selling off and some aren't. So I guess that's just the inefficient market that we all like over the counter.
Well, it gets to the question of like, well, let's say you see some of these opportunities where like you see that there's a pullback and you actually want to buy. Where can you right now? Like where can you actually do that?
Oh, right. Yeah, I think right this minute you can on Schwab, but I think in August, or Dan, I think has the date, they're going to cut you off. So that's why I asked the question, is like, I'm a little nervous to buy some of these, but the ones that I know are going to comply, you feel better.
What is IB saying? Is IB come out formally?
Yeah, Dan, give us the full wrap. I feel like Dan and Dave probably have the full wrap. So give us the full. I should have an image with like of a grid of each one. But I'd love to get as much information for everybody listening right now. Dan or Dave, whoever wants to go first.
So I a few years ago, I had this issue like with Fidelity, where they told me I couldn't buy these stocks anymore. This was like 5 years ago. And I went through and I contacted every brokerage I could find, like 50 different, like I just Googling brokerage, and just calling them all. And so I wrote a blog post. This was like years ago. I ended up going to T. Rowe Price, and then Penn Trade, and then Schwab. And so I've been around the table. And they're all constantly they all kind of change over time as mergers happen and whatever. So I need to go back myself and start contacting the ones again. But back then I had found a number of them who would say that they would let you trade these dark stocks if you wanted. Some said yes on the stop sign, but no on the gray market stocks, which they consider even worse. But the problem is recently, even those ones who back then had said yes, which was like Interactive Brokers, E-Trade, Schwab, T. Rowe Price, TD Ameritrade, like they've been one at a time coming out with information saying they're not going to allow this anymore after September. I'm not sure about Interactive Brokers because I don't use them because they never allowed gray market stocks. But like T. Rowe Price has said after September they won't allow it anymore. They're the last one I know of right now that'll let you buy caveat emptor stocks. Schwab, TD Ameritrade, and I think E-Trade have all said now also after August sometime they're not going to let you buy stop sign stocks anymore. I contacted Glendale Securities, which is like a more full service type broker that used to be involved with Penn Trade. like a phone in kind of thing, even them, they're not like, because they don't allow gray market stocks. And so if all these stop sign stocks are going to drop to the gray market, then even this, you know, more full service broker won't let you trade them either, because they don't allow gray market stuff, or they only allow DTC eligible. So I'm at a loss currently for like after September, what will even allow it?
I mean, I don't know who everyone uses. I use Odeon. I've heard of other firms as well. There's one called Axis something. I don't use them. They clear through Pershing. These are like introducing brokers. There's like a whole slew of kind of like, you know, kind of off the beaten path. Like, I guess they're called introducing brokers. So like they're your face, but really what they do is they have like a master account with Pershing or with Hilltop or with other sort of clearing firms or actual custodians and clearing firms. So I'm with Odeon, very happy. You know, it costs a little more, I think. Yeah, it costs more than IB. I mean, everything costs more than IB. I kind of feel like this is, I don't want to like touch any hot buttons here, unless it might be a live wire, but I really hated IB with passion, just because they were so painful doing any sort of corporate actions. I mean, it's just the most painful thing trying to get IB. There's no customer service at all. And, you know, I had a corporate action where they basically, you know, frankly, in my opinion, I guess I should state that, Robert, for Bobby's gonna, get on me. In my opinion, I think they screwed me out of $40,000, and they didn't say anything. I was like, dude, I'm gonna bring an arbitration. Like, this is like, you literally screwed me out of 40 grand. And I mean, it wasn't, you know, at the time, it was a tiny amount of money compared to the money in the fund, but I was just like, you know, I figured it was just like increasing my brokerage fees to the normal brokerage fees if you amortize it over a few years. I thought that Dave's laughing. Anyway.
Yeah, I can weigh in on Interactive Brokers. They've basically made the same announcements, not as publicly as a few others, but yeah, after some point in August, the securities become liquidation only. And I believe after the September drop dead date, not only liquidation only, but liquidation by phone. So have fun with that. So yeah, it might.
Does IB even have a phone number?
If you're special, they do. Yeah, so that'll be annoying. I mean, likewise, I have my own share of complaints about Interactive Brokers. I'm happy with other aspects of them. I continue to use them, but yeah, it's not going to be a fun place to try to work in these markets anymore. And I have to say, like, we're all, of course, unhappy about these moves, but you also have to sort of understand that a little bit from the broker's perspective. I mean, trading in these sort of stocks and securities probably is 3 or 4 basis points, like max, of their total trade volume compared to all the ETFs, listed securities out there around the world. And in the share of headaches it creates now and certainly going forward, it is just proportionate to that. So you can understand why a lot of them are just not interested in offering this service anymore, as unfortunate it is for us. I don't know, shout to the heavens, I guess, but I can't be that angry at the brokers for making these changes.
You got to be angry with the SEC. That's what it is.
Right.
They let these companies deregister, and now they're dumping that problem on the foot of the brokerage. Like, oh, we've let them deregister. You be the gatekeeper. You take care of it. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the future then of investing in these types of securities? I mean, is there a future? Is this it? You know, I mean, what happens from here? You know, like, and then also, has there been any news on like what is the new deregistration process? I mean, let's say, you know, after this rule takes effect and a company on the QB doesn't want to be on the QB anymore or be current, like, now what? You know, I mean, it's still pretty damn hazy. Anybody know? I don't know. I'm hoping.
Well, the deregistration process, where if you have fewer than 300 shareholders record, I don't think it's changing. And I mean, I find it amusing that everyone's so upset about China for censoring these companies after they went public. Like, okay, people bought their stock in an IPO, and then now there's new regulation on these Chinese companies. And it just strikes me as really similar to the reason most of these stocks exist is that they were once registered with the SEC, a normal public company, and at some point they did a filing to no longer file financials to the SEC, and the only threshold for that is under 300 shareholders of record, which almost, I believe, I was about to say almost all, but many public companies have that because the shareholder record, consolidates all public holders. So most public companies have like 80 shareholders of record. So it just kills me that Dan alluded to it, but that the SEC allows this to happen. That's not changing to my knowledge. I think a lot of companies and everyone I think has kind of alluded to this. A lot of these companies are going to comply with this. So there's going to be, I don't know what the number is, but I think like over 1,000 new reporting companies in the over-the-counter ecosystem that I think is going to add some vibrancy, because these dark stocks are fine, but there's very low trading volumes. Like it works in a personal account, but if you're managing more money, I think getting more stocks into the OTCQB and the better tiers and stuff will probably make the over-the-counter markets a little bit better. And then the dark stocks that stay dark, I mean, it's like, I think we all have to move away from the retail brokers like Schwab and start becoming experts in these like specialty brokers, like Tom, or introducing brokers, like Tom was rattling off.
Yeah, if anybody has any others. I like Odeon, but anybody has any others?
I totally agree with you, Mark. See, I think like we're getting, it does kind of suck a little bit, but I think in the end it's going to create some interesting opportunity for us. I would think the companies that are going to want to comply, maybe have a story to tell, and they still want to have that happen. Maybe not in their timeline, but they're forced to get current, so they'll do it just to keep that dream alive a little bit. So. It might be cool too to start looking at these companies that are on their way to becoming a compliant already, and that are actually, seeing where they're at and everything, and maybe they'll speed that process up.
I mean, it's easy to beat up on OTC markets because they are kind of like the one player here, and you have to deal with them. But they're providing a pretty nice service. I think I don't know the number on OTC, the fees for the QB, but that's like a higher tier. I think the base, like if you're dark and you just want to post your financials there and be compliant, my understanding is it's like $6,500 a year. Which if you think about it, and my other understanding is
I'm selfishly trying to figure out if I should buy the stock now.
Oh yeah, well it's not. It used to be cheaper, but it's a great business, I think. And then my understanding is that if a company doesn't comply right now, and then or they miss it, or what have you, like 9 months from now, they can go to OTC markets and file their financials and pay the $6,500, and they're back compliant. I mean, if you compare that to the process of doing an IPO, with an investment bank and stuff, it's a pretty good value, I think, that they're offering. But
and the limited,
I think it's a good stock. It's just not cheap at this point.
The limited tier doesn't even require an audit. So it's not that much.
Why have an audit
to do?
Gosh, it's such a burden.
And also, to be fair to what Maj, to your point, like talking about quality and stuff. Obviously, we love to have more quality, not just on OTC but all exchanges. And so, to be fair to OTC Markets, and for full disclosure, I'm not a shareholder, but they are a sponsor of our virtual events. And actually, we're going to be doing a panel at our upcoming event, doing an update with OTC Markets, so that should be kind of interesting. But in fairness, I mean, look at NASDAQ, YSC. I mean, there's companies that are, haven't been profitable or for years, or never generated $1 of revenue, and they're listed on there. So it's like, we could throw stones at OTC for letting anybody wanting to list on there, but like Marcus said, it is a service. If the company wants to be public, they want to go that route to raise capital. Okay, that's what it's there for. Maj.
Yeah, I'm not going to launch a competitor and charge $4,999. They've got.
Think of the competitive landscape.
Economy of scale there and stuff.
What's going on in Canada? What's going on with this? Like, aren't there like 2 now competing exchanges for kind of OTC-ish securities?
Well, there's TSX Venture, there's the TSX, there's NEO, and the CSC. Yeah. NEO's the new one, but from my understanding, NEO is trying to compete with more on the big board TSX, not so much for getting venture names. Like they're trying to be like, oh, you're uplisting from the venture or the CSE to the TSX. Like, why don't you uplist to?
Well, but will your broker still allow you to go after those? Like maybe this ends up being like a little bit of a local area where people try to do deals and stuff because, you know, Canada is going to be more hospitable and you can get it through your broker in the States, even though like OTC, you know, I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud.
I have heard that Canadian brokers will still let you buy like the caveat emptor stocks, which most of these Schwab and those things have already cut off. I'm not certain what they'll do after August or September, but you know, there was someone telling me he was thinking about taking a vacation to Canada just to sign up for an account.
I once was gonna like rent a place or get a cousin to set up. There was a demutualization going on in Canada. What's it called? Economical. Someone's gonna have heard of this on this panel. But there was it's like one of the largest PNC insurers in Canada. They've been doing like this demutualization for, gosh, I don't even know, maybe a decade or maybe like 5 years. But you have to be a policy holder to actually do it. So I was like, I gotta pay for the policy for my cousin, so then he would give me the rights. It was very funny. You know, this is all opportunity, but yeah.
Yeah. And sorry, going back to this conversation on wanting to, you know, maybe create an expert market or kind of a tier one, because I think, you know, I was kind of poking fun of Maj a little bit there, but like at the end of the day, I mean, it's not a bad idea, you know, and it would be pretty incredible. It'd be actually incredible to see, you know, but like let's be entrepreneurs here. Let's think about how would they actually do that? How can you do that? You know, at what threshold then do they slip off that tier system? You know, is it maybe just creating an index or something? I don't know.
Yeah, I thought about maybe like if you a true kind of, you know, I think value add would be, you know, some type of list that where there's a checklist of maybe more like qualitative and fundamental data that kind of qualifies the company. That really helps the investor a lot, I think, you know, in terms of, you know, basically how, if you look at it, if you looked at creating a tier one list from the way an investor would look at it, that's the way I would do it. And, you know, we're kind of thinking about at Geo how to maybe look at that to really add value to this, to the space, and maybe transparency, help investors who really want to be involved in this space to really be involved in just the quality names, true tier one companies, not just those that are filing financials and, you know, listing whatever. And that was kind of when I talked to the OTC about that. I was like, you know, you have this top 50 list. Well, let's make that top 50 list more based on qualitative criteria and a true, not just on price performance or these kind of things, or you know, being on a particular, you know, listing kind of tier.
And I'm sure the comments back were like, well, then there goes all of our mining and biotech names. Like,
well, I mean, we put in lines, I guess, yeah, but that would have been pretty awesome, I think. So maybe they'll do
that was a low blow.
That was not a low.
The guys are wearing dark because everybody's going dark. I'm wearing my referee hat, referee shirt.
I want a biotech company. Yeah, but you know, I think a lot of when you look at the space, right, and when you look at all these, I'm just talking. I think OTC's done a pretty decent job, I guess, but for the most part, these service providers for the retail investor, I don't think are built, but you know, like a buy investor for investor mentality, and it would be cool to have, you know, a breath of fresh air to kind of have that, I think, available to some degree. If you want, I mean, for us, it's maybe, you know, we have, because we're doing this all day long. It's great not to have that, right? Because we can go find these opportunities in the inefficiency of the universe. But I think it would help all of us to some degree.
Can you please do it and put it behind the paywall? I mean, that's a service I'd pay for.
We're working on it.
All right.
I'm just working on it.
Tease, cliffhanger.
Come on.
This is like, I just realized that we're like the DIY or like maker club of like securities. Is that like a thing? Or like, you know, there's like the whole maker movement where people make their own stuff. We're like, yeah. Anyways.
I mean, is there anything that we're missing when it comes to what's about to happen with this new rules? I mean, actually, hold on, before I get to that, you know, as individual investors in some of these names, I mean, what's your strategy right now? You know, are you selling some of the names that were core holdings because there's a fear of what might happen, or you're holding it because could be a chance of this export market, or like what's your strategy? And you don't have to name individual names of what you're doing in those, but like just in general. Dan, Dave, Marcus, Maj, Tom, Bueller.
What I'm Bueller, anyone? What I'm doing is like just waiting. I mean, I feel like capitalism will find a way, and we will all get back to trading these things somehow. There might be a period of time this fall, winter, where it's just like sitting with like no volume at all. But like I have about 20% of my portfolio is in these types of stocks that
That's
are
all?
not going to be.
I put you at 660.
I mean, it changes over time, but at the moment, I added it up the other day and it's about 20. So what I'm doing is kind of waiting. I mean, I own all these stocks because I think there's a chance they're going to make me money someday. And that chance is not changing by what the SEC is doing. But yeah, watch and learn. We'll see.
Was the catalyst on these names ever? It was always a transaction, right? It was always a corporate event. So it never was like, oh, it's going to be discovered and there was never a ratings re-rate on a lot of these like dark companies.
There is sometimes. I mean, some of them people just don't know about, and then once more people hear about them, they move up. A lot of them are like what Marcus talked about earlier about like, oh, some of these ones that are going to be filing again. That itself can be a huge catalyst. Like I've made money a number of times on different stocks that are not communicating at all or very rarely, and then all of a sudden they start putting out press releases because like they have a new CEO or something. The guy handed it over to his son or whatever, and so that for sure is and that potential is not going to change. Like a year from now or 2 years from now, some of these dark ones might have a new management that all of a sudden cares, or the large shareholder has decided they want to like give a bunch of cash to their kids, and so they want to get out or something. So like that chance is always there, regardless of like the OTC markets tier that they trade on.
Yeah, for my part, I'd say that, I mean, anything that you bought thinking, I don't care much what it does over the next year, but I'm hopeful that in 5 years I'll have made a nice sum of money, I don't think you have a lot to worry about. Anything you bought mostly for a trade or just like quick pop or like kind of reversion to the mean based on, I don't know, some kind of short-term issue or short-term seller finishing up and clearing out, that I'd be a bit more nervous about. So yeah, I mean, I'd say take a look at the stuff you hold, know why you own it, and if it really, I mean, trading activity doesn't have much of an impact in the short run if it's a long-term hold for you, but it has a lot of an impact if this is something you bought as a trade. So the eternal question of, don't make your trades investments and don't make your investments trades just based on price action. So think about why you hold it and if you're willing to hold it through a period of little or no quotation.
My thing is, I think echo what you guys are saying here, man. It's like I'm not really doing much. I'm not too worried about it really in terms of value winning out in the end if you have the right companies. If anything, I'm probably going to get more aggressive in the OTC market, and especially these dark stocks, thinking that there's going to be these, this catalyst like you're talking about, Thomas, like these events where just the event of being able to report is going to be reporting is going to be interesting and see what that does. And it's really, really cool to see, some of these companies that come out of the woodwork. There's going to be some gems there probably. Wow, look at this company. I can't believe it was selling at this price when they come out. So yeah, I'm looking at, overall, I'm looking at it as a positive thing for the space in terms of discovery of, some great companies and trying to build that pipeline now, not in September, and see what we can find. I'm just upset at why the SEC is doing it. I don't believe that the reason they're doing it is for a reason. Yeah. And they should just say
it's a cop out. It's a cop out. It's like, oh, let's just stop out fraud. So you can't buy any of this. Yeah. It's like, oh, okay. If you're not the poor people, the rich people are fine. The poor people, they don't need to buy this stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, okay.
Look, I mean, let's admit we do get somewhat annoyed when some of these companies don't report anything. Right? We want them to report something if they're a great company because you want that to be part of the discovery process, right? So there are some firms we do want, they should be doing something to some degree, I think. It'd be nice. And it help us catalyze our investments even faster, probably. And just by
Maj, can I ask a favor?
Sure.
Can you like we should make a song about this rule. This would be great. I see a guitar behind you. Come on.
Oh, so the OTC blues.
So, yeah, I was gonna say this will be a good blues song for all dark stocks.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll give a
great.
slightly contrary
Meet me
take
out.
on some of this. Like, this has been a weird year because it was like probably a year, maybe more ago, that this got proposed by the SEC that we're not going to let trading in dark stocks. Then shortly after that, when you finally read the 300-page, proposed rule, they were open to an expert market. Okay, well, what does this mean? You hear some ideas from OTC markets, and they propose something. All the comments are in favor of it. And so this is kind of like 6 months ago. I'm getting more comfortable with it, even holding the companies that I know will not comply with this because I can access this and trade. It's only in the last couple weeks that it really dawned on me that none of the brokers that I do business with will let me plug into this expert market in all likelihood. So maybe I'll find a workaround, but I think there could be a dislocation, and you guys are talking about opportunity, and so that's the right way to think about a dislocation. But it's not clear to me how I can play that dislocation. And then at the same time, there's probably 10 or 15 dark stocks that I'm involved with, that I read their stuff, talk to management. I was surprised at how many said they would comply. So call it 2/3. And that's great. So these are companies that never made anything public. They're all, in my opinion, undervalued, and they're going to open up to the world. That's great on 2/3. The 1/3, call it, that have confirmed to me, or I'm pretty sure are not going to comply, in my portfolio never traded off really. So like if you look at Hanover Foods, that's a net, it trades at a low multiple, nepotistic, horrible management who thinks they're private and denies that people are shareholders and things like that. Their stock hasn't moved. So I sold mine, and I don't know why anyone can sell out of Hanover without taking a loss because the stock's been flat for the last couple of years. I don't know why anyone wouldn't sell that. And then there are a couple others, in that category, and I've sold them. So I would suggest that if people listening to this own dark stocks, that they try to get some sense, they contact management or what have you. And if they're not going to comply and the stock hasn't moved down, I think you should sell it. But maybe not inconsistent like you guys said, but maybe a little more glass half empty for part of the market.
This is the wrong crowd for that message. No, I hear you. I mean, we should talk over like the dark stock that gave you the biggest pain. I don't know. Maybe I'll throw Waxford Industries out there as like
that's one
most painful, nepotistic or whatever you want to call it, but just think that's private.
Waxman, not Waxford.
Oh, sorry, Waxman. I just defamed like a hedge fund, I think. Yeah, no, sorry, Waxman.
I think what's kind of cool here, guys, too, at least we know who's not going to comply now. This is going to be the nail in the coffin, right? We know these guys never have a chance of coming out, right? So forget about it. And why deal with it sometimes unless you know.
Yeah, or if in 2 months I figure out how I can trade the market and Hanover is trading at half where it is today, maybe, but.
You going to get back in?
I don't think on that one, but I mean, it was flat and they paid like a 2% dividend. So I got a 2% return while the market went up like 50%.
Hey, look, at the end of the day,
one last thought. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
I'm considering if I hadn't sold Hanover, I was going to donate it to Tether to add to their collateral pool of whatever commercial paper they own.
Genius.
I mean, look, at the end of the day, this is a huge opportunity set, right? A huge opportunity set. 7,000 names. In that 7,000 names, good amount of them are probably dog shit anyway. Let's be frank, right? So like we're making a big stink because it's like, oh my God, there's 7,000 names that this is potentially affecting, but it's like we're really only sad about like maybe a handful of them that are maybe quality names that now are like, oh, cool. All right, we're not going to comply, Yeah,
does anybody know? I don't know. What's the statistics on the market? Because like I see all the time, where you see those like, is it FINRA or SEC filing against the security and say like, oh, we're pulling these listings. It'll be like 20 listings. And like, I'll get it because it'll be some bankrupt company I was looking at. And I just set up like, an update on it or whatever. And I'm like, I'm amazed. It takes like 4 years for them to pull the symbol on a bankrupt company. It's like, bizarre. It's like, why would it take 4 or 5 years for them to pull a bankrupt company's QSIP? So out of the
That is
7,000,
a
there
weird
must
one.
be like tons that are just nothing, like absolutely nothing.
I own I think 2 that I think are absolutely nothing, but they're like, I own them from before, and but it still trades, but like you call them, the number, it doesn't go anywhere. You know, the website's dead.
Yeah, it's not worth the electronic ink it's printed on. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really
So-
saying something.
So as I was saying earlier, you know, now I'll bring this question here right now. You know, is there anything we're missing when it comes to this rule and dark stocks? I mean, I mean, quite frankly, is there anything that we're missing in general about this that we should have discussed or told to our audience here? Maybe, did we cover it all?
I wish I had a good answer. I wish I had a good answer for the audience on how retail investors can access these stocks after September, but I do not. It's like so opaque right now, and all the answers I've gotten are either no or we're not sure yet. And
Hey, Dan, did you say back in the expert market for a second? Did you say that on the expert market, are you going to be able to see the bids and asks on those and what's going on there, or
that's
no? You are?
I think so. That's the exemption that OTC Markets is asking for, an exemption to this SEC rule specifically for their expert market, so that, you know, if your name is on the list, that you're allowed to, like, you know, trade in the expert market or whatever, however you get on that list. And if a brokerage will, you know, let you transact through them onto that list, that those stocks on the expert market, you would be able to see the electronic bid and ask.
So is your understanding that, so if you don't file financials, you can get this special exemption and to be on the expert market? Is that what
It's not the company getting the exemption. It's OTC Markets getting the exemption from the SEC for this rule of providing quotes. So they would provide quotes on the expert market. And then whoever's transacting on the expert market, all the stocks inside the expert market would be these dark companies that are not filing any financials.
Right.
Did they give any guidance on how you become eligible to be an expert, quote unquote expert?
I think it was the accredited investor rules, if I'm not mistaken. Like, so if you're accredited, you have a ton of money, or if you are like a professional in some way. I think Marcus, didn't you? I think you actually read the whole 300-page document, right? I didn't.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I think you framed it correctly, Dan. It's like broker dealers aren't. There's no law that says anyone can't trade a stock that doesn't make financials public. Like, you can trade it. You could call the company and they could put you in touch with the seller, and you could trade at the transfer agent. There's no law, there's no securities law that says you can't trade stocks that don't have public information. It's completely legal. But the SEC can regulate broker dealers on what quotes they display to customers, particularly if the customer, it's not suitable for the customer, or, you know, or these words. And so, like, the SEC's basically said, we don't want quotes displayed on dark stocks. And they have an exemption where, or the OTC Markets, this expert market is an exemption where if someone can show they're accredited, they can see quotes on that market for these dark stocks. But for that to happen, some broker has to decide they want to participate in that. For this, there's no ecosystem right now. It's just on a piece of paper, just an idea of a expert market. So, like, the brokers and stuff need to plug into that. But it's chicken before the egg, because it hasn't even been approved yet. And that's the frustration, is that it's taken this long for the SEC to approve this expert market, because it's just an idea right now. I don't know.
The expert market,
fair, Dan?
The expert market exists, actually. It's there. It's got like 300 stocks in it or something. They're just great stocks at the moment, but yeah.
And is that the same? That's the same expert market. So it's just going to be a big expansion of that market.
That's I think so. I think so.
Well, and right now, good luck getting a broker that will plug you into the existing export market. That's the problem. Yeah.
I've asked, and they said no to me. Like, they have no plans for it. But
that's the problem.
It's not that hard to read to read a qualified investor is pretty hard, but to read to meet the whatever the other one is, somebody help me. Accredited investor is not insurmountable. It's what is it, 200,000 in yearly annual income. and $1 million in net worth, including your personal residence. Okay, that's money, but it's not like ridiculous amounts of money. And you know, normally you're self-certifying. Full disclosure, you self-certify. You know, Bobby's gonna hate that I just threw that out there. Anyway,
No,
no? Okay.
You say your experience.
Self-certify. You say
yeah.
you say you know what you're
Yeah.
doing. You say
I would imagine that would be the
okay.
case.
But again, it depends on the brokerage. Like what someone told me, they asked Schwab about that, and Schwab said they have no way of verifying, and so they're not going to deal with it.
Right.
Which is ridiculous because they can see your account value.
A lot of the Twitter questions are like, is this a business opportunity to start a brokerage for this area? And I think it's the same business question that Schwab's looking at right now. They make hundreds of millions or $1 billion a year from selling order flow. They are now making more money off of the cash balances in your account, the free trading commissions. This is just not a good fit for that business model because there are headaches with these. And I don't know that it's actually a good business transacting like 100 share orders for Dan Schum for like $9 a trade. And then if it turns out that Dan does a pump and dump, like we get like slapped with a $50 million fine. So it's not clear to me whether this would be good business for anyone. I really hope that the rules get set and then the private sector can look at it and say, you know, can we make money in this business? There's lots of brokers other than the top 5 online brokers that could have some registered reps and put some infrastructure around this market. It's just hasn't happened yet. But I think if someone's running like a $100 million hedge fund and they're have a prime broker with Jefferies or Interactive Brokers, I'm not in that world, so I don't know if this is true, but my guess is that they can access these markets like through the expert market that you just mentioned.
Marcus,
and, you know,
let me tell you, we're going to create an ETF using Maj's tier 1 system. Okay. And that's going to be the answer. Just putting a basket of the high quality names, and that's it.
So what
yeah,
you're
but
really
we're talking
saying
about
is
the dark stocks, the low
Like
quality.
5 of them.
this is like the opposite of Robinhood. This is like a gift. We're adding alpha back to the emerging manager pool.
Yeah,
Anyway.
the premium on that ETF, I can already hear it just going way above intrinsic value. Anyways, so I think we've pretty much covered everything here. I mean, Marcus, you checked Twitter. Did we miss any Twitter questions that we that we got, or grievances? I don't think we.
I think it's
addressed
pretty
all the
comprehensive. Yeah.
All right. Well, with that, you know, let's close it out here. You know, so go one by one. Everybody, give where people can follow you on social media, as well as maybe a final take on all this stuff. You know, for maybe even newbies that had never heard of this or just got started in dark stocks a month ago and no idea what the hell was coming. So, you know, I'm gonna go on my screen. I got counterclockwise. So Dan, you're first up.
So you
Or
can
clockwise.
find me.
Sorry.
Clockwise. Get it right.
Yeah.
You can find me at my blog, nonamestocks.com. I'm on Twitter at nonamestocks. If you are looking to read some history on what is a dark stock, what is the SEC, how clearing firms play a role in this, because some of them, it's not even the brokerage that's saying, no, you can't buy that. It's the firm they clear through. On my blog, I've written up quite a few posts on these things, and over the years, different brokerages that have given me headache. There's a page at the top, dark companies, the SEC, OTC markets, brokerages. You can click on that and do some reading. Send me an email if you want.
Tom?
You know, chaos is opportunity. I mean,
Chaos.
I got. Yeah, chaos is opportunity. I mean, you know, part of like, you know, the stuff that yeah. Oh, okay. I don't know. You were like way over my head.
Oh,
you gotta remember,
sorry.
you gotta keep it down here. I'm not cultured. Okay, I sit there all day looking at banker companies.
I apologize.
But I do think that there'll be opportunity in this, and I'm sure a lot of people on the panel will figure out ways. I feel like part of being in this market was always like finding brokers who will let you transact, what the fees were, you know, what the regulations were. So part of the alpha is just like knowing the system and like learning it, just like in bankruptcy. Like part of the reason you're making money on some of this stuff is just you just know that system. You know, it's like the fundamentals are kind of obvious. You know, it's like you're buying this for 50, it's worth $1. But knowing like how you're going to get to the dollar, how long it's going to take, and what the regulatory, you know, how do you even buy this stuff? You know, is a decent barrier to entry. So maybe this is just you know, this is just a new thing. You know, this is just a new thing to comply with, or not comply with, but to maybe differentiate yourself, and or, you know, yeah, that's it.
Very good. And you can follow him at Thomas Braziel, and that's IEL. Maj?
Yeah, thanks, Bobby. Yeah, well, I think, again, I echo everybody here. I think this is going to be an opportunity to find some interesting names, maybe some life-changing names if you're looking to, you know, opportunities here, if you're looking, willing to do the dirty work. I think, you know, if I was an investor wanting to get involved in this space or was interested in dark stocks, I'd start digging deeper now for the next 3-4 weeks to make a wish list. And maybe even, you know, reading the press, reading whatever releases are out there, information, or calling the company to find out if you can get an idea if they are going to comply, and maybe get an information advantage from that. Yeah, opportunity is what I'm looking for here. You can find me at Maj at GeoInvesting.com is my email address if you want to talk stocks at all. My website is GeoInvesting.com, where we offer some premium services. And you can follow me on Twitter at Maj GeoInvesting. Thanks, Bobby.
You can also listen to his podcast, Avoiding the Crap Podcast, with Maj Soueidan. And don't worry, I got you on that, Maj. So that's available wherever you get podcasts. So
right.
You're really good. You're so good at promoting.
There's a great interview with me and Dan on that, a fireside chat, which I recommend people if you're really into dark stocks. So
for sure, absolutely. All right, and Dave.
Yeah, so keep in mind, this is all a developing situation. We're all talking with the best knowledge, most recent information we have, but things can still change between now and September, between now and the end of the year, and a lot depends on if and when the SEC comes through with approval for that official expert market. So stay posted. Recommend reading the newsletters that OTC Markets puts out, which you can sign up for on their website. And also, I mean, obviously everyone here enjoys this sort of thing. We do our research. It's not really a tourist market. So if you are interested in these sort of opportunities, then you have to devote the time. It's not just the sort of thing we could throw some darts and do well. So do your homework, everyone.
And where can people follow you?
Sure. I'm on Twitter at Alluvial Capital. I also have a Substack, alluvial.substack.com, where I write about this and that.
Very cool. All right. And Marcus, close us out now.
Yeah. I can be followed on Twitter at Marcus Frampton, and I really like interacting with people there. So definitely feel free to shoot me a DM if you want to talk about anything that we talked about.
You don't have a final take?
Oh, final take. Yeah, I mean, I thought Dave summarized it pretty well. I mean, it is worth emphasizing that this is, you know, there's a reason why there's more regulation coming around this. This is like a tougher part of the market for people it really requires some real work. So people should buyer beware on this stuff. And I mean, I'm an optimist. I think that they just got to set the rules, and there'll be some private sector solution around trading these markets, but it really is a period of uncertainty. So that will create some opportunity.
Absolutely. Well, I think that's a great place to end it. As Dave alluded to, we'll probably have to do a part 2 of this at some point, because this is an ongoing situation as we continue to get more information, in the coming months. But I highly recommend everybody go, and if you're not already a subscriber of some of the resources that everybody on this panel said today, from No Name Stocks, GeoInvesting, Alluvial Capital Substack, Marcus's newsletter as well, or follow Tom on Twitter for the next, he might do a Twitter rant on some of these things. We never know. But with that, thank you all for joining me today. This was a lot of fun, and we'll keep monitoring the situation. And have a great rest of your day, and look forward to the next one. All right. Thanks, guys.